What if finding your voice was never really about becoming more confident, more influential, or more successful? What if your voice matters for a completely different reason than you've been taught? Because every time someone expresses something true, something invisible happens around them. And most of us have no idea how far those ripples travel. Your voice matters far more than you realize, and not for the reasons you think. Hey, and welcome back to Soul Shine, the Art of Becoming. Today, we are completing a podcast series about your voice, your expression, and what it means to participate in your own life. In episode 52, one beautiful year, what I was creating was actually creating me. We explored the idea that expression isn't something we do, although it can be, but it is one of the ways that we actually discover ourselves. The things we create, that we say, that we write, that we share and explore, don't just communicate who we are. They help us reveal who we are to ourselves. In the next episode, the surprising reason smart people stay silent, we explored why speaking feels so difficult in the first place, why our nervous systems interpret visibility, vulnerability, and judgment as threat, and why courage isn't actually about being fearless. It's about being willing. And today, I want to explore with you the next question, because if expression helps us discover ourselves, and if silence is rooted in our deeply human need to belong, then why does expression even matter beyond us? Then why speak at all? Why share? Why create? Why participate? And I think that a lot of us carry around this story of my voice will matter when I'm successful. My voice will matter when I have more credentials. My ideas will matter when I actually have proof, when I have followers or I'm in a leadership position. But what if your voice is already shaping the world around you in ways you will never fully see? And I want to play with you even on the flip side of that question. What if the people who have changed your life the most, they didn't even know they were doing it? What if that tells us something really important about how influence actually works? So in this episode, we're going to follow that thread. We're going to start with the people who change us without even realizing it. And that'll lead us to explore the science around how humans influence each other. From there, we'll look at why you never really know who's listening and how we underestimate ourselves. And finally, we'll talk about this unseen legacy of expression. And I think all these four ideas are connected. And I think in their own ways, they reveal how we consistently underestimate our voice, our words, our impact in the room and outside of the room. So first, let's talk about those people who change our lives and they don't even know we're doing it. I want to bring you back to 2019, where I felt like I was drowning. I was a new faculty member early in my career, a new second-time mom, so deep in imposter syndrome, anxiety, a version of myself that was literally a shell of myself. And during that season, 5 women changed my life. But you know what? They never sat me down. They never coached me. They never mentored me. They never even knew what was happening on the inside because I was too ashamed to tell anyone. One of them was like the embodiment of joy. One of them was the embodiment of devotion. One of them, conviction. One of them, excellence. And one of them, feminine leadership. And every time I watched these 5 women move through the world, I would have the same thought. Dang, if that is possible for her, maybe a fraction of that could be possible for me. It's not like they gave me answers. It's not like they helped me directly solve my anxiety or my confidence directly. We'll get there. It was simply that they gave me evidence that there was another way of existing, of living, of leading, of loving. And that evidence became hope. And years later, I realized none of those women even knew that they were changing my life. And it's not like they were trying to inspire me. They were just living, simply living, creating, sharing, expressing who they were, what they valued, their own vision for the world. And yet, them being a living example expanded what I thought was possible for me. And if you want to go back and hear the entire story, I made a podcast episode about it to celebrate them. It is called You Make a Valuable Impact by Being Your Genuine Self. But I think that a lot of us can identify with people like that in our own lives, like people whose way of living, whose words, whose creativity, whose courage, whose presence altered our trajectory. And I think that raises a really interesting question, because if people can influence us so profoundly without realizing it, how does that actually happen? So as it turns out, researchers have spent decades studying this exact phenomenon, which takes us to our second point of how do we influence each other as humans? One reason that we underestimate our impact is because most influence happens invisibly. We tend to think that influence looks like followers, downloads, leadership titles, stages, awards, recognitions, shout outs. But that's not how humans actually work. Researchers studying emotional contagion have found that emotions spread through social networks in measurable ways. What we feel and express influences the people around us, often without either person realizing it. And I'm going to link the citations for that Kramer et al. Article down below. So think about like when you go to a concert, when you go to a protest, when you go to a group faith event, courage spreads, hope spreads, honesty spreads, permission spreads, and so does silence. Researchers have also found that people become more willing to speak up, to take risks, and participate when they see others doing it first, which makes sense if you go back to the other podcast episode where we talk about the surprising reason smart people stay silent. And we really shine a light on our real human needs of safety and belonging. So if others do it and they belong, I have permission to do it too. And it's not that they have to do it perfectly. It's not that they have to be fearless. They just have to do it honestly. That is what is called social modeling. And it allows this sort of psychological permission, the widening of what feels possible. So looking back at those 5 women, and the reason I tell that story is for so many different reasons, but they weren't changing my life because like they had the perfect answer, the perfect advice. They had no struggles. They were changing my life because they expanded my imagination. They showed me possibilities I couldn't see for myself. And hopefully we've all experienced this. You watch someone tell the truth. You watch someone start a project, a business, a dream, lose weight, mend a relationship, forgive, create art, leave something that no longer fits, ask a hard question, share a vulnerable story. What does that do to you? You feel the shift, don't you? And it's not because like they solved something in your life, but because they expanded your sense of what's possible. Sometimes courage needs to be a little borrowed for us to create with it. And eventually we can also pass it forward. I want you to contemplate this. Every room you've ever entered has shaped you. And every room you've ever entered has also been shaped by you, whether you intended it to or not, whether you were vocal or whether you were silent. The easiest form to recognize it is when we are vocal and when we do ruffle feathers. Oh my gosh, I shaped that room. But guess what? Your silence is also shaping the room. The idea that you had that you didn't share is also shaping the room. This is why expression is not just personal. It is relational. It is communal. It is participatory. The moment you express something, you become part of the environment around you. And I think that's interesting because if we're always influencing one another in ways seen and unseen, then that probably means that we're influencing people and we have no idea who we're impacting. I want to pause this conversation briefly because if this is resonating, I would love for you to just subscribe to the show or share it with a friend, someone that you care about, not because like the numbers matter, but speaking of social contagion, this is how ideas matter, how they spread through people. And that's really what this conversation is about. Let's make our participation matter in the ways that matter to us. Let's compound the ripple effects in all the ways that we create when we choose to participate. So I want to contemplate this idea a little bit more of like, you never know who you're impacting. And I want to share with you a personal story that happened quite recently because it just shattered my belief in the best possible way. And a few years ago, as I'm sort of leaning more into feminine intelligence and energetics and spirituality, I discovered a community called Goss. And what really drew me in was what they stood for. Their mission is simple, but it's elevating and empowering women worldwide. And I was so captivated by the diversity of women represented there because it was a variety of doctors, mothers, entrepreneurs, architects, creatives, scientists, visionaries, women in fashion, in law, but also in healing and spirituality. Women that were building families, that were building futures, they all had different paths. They all had different expressions, but they had one shared thread, which was empowerment. And so I sort of followed them from afar and looked at the women who were in the magazine and admired all of them for their courage and their vision and what they were creating. And just to be vulnerable, in 2025, I put them on my vision board. One day, I would have served enough. I would have contributed enough. I would have made an impact. I would have really something to say. Then maybe I could reach out to them and I could be a part of that community who has been so meaningful and inspirational to me. Maybe I would finally have something to give back to them. And so fast forward January of 2026, I realized that I wasn't following them on social media. And so I just clicked follow. That was it. No plan, no strategy, no pitch, literally just the follow button because I just appreciated what they were doing. And instead of looking them up on the internet and their magazines, this was just, I didn't know they had a social media account. They had 418,000 followers. And I'm just a drop in the bucket. Who the F am I? I'm no one. I'm one person out of hundreds of thousands, and especially these incredible women. And within 1 hour of following them, I received a message. I'm going to bring it up for you. Hello, Saidie. Love your brand. It would do so well with our audience. Would you like to join our manifest with Gabby Bernstein? We'd love to have you. I was like, wait, what? What brand? I'm like, what? I'm just me. There's no brand. Remember, this is back in 2025. Well, coming off of 2025, that I'm just creating art, and the podcast and the social media is just art. It's literally this whole experiment. If you've listened to my previous episodes, you'll know that in 2025, I actually put the vision of Soulshine to the side because it was too paralyzing for me to try to live up to it. And I just started creating art and I took on this experiment and all of these platforms just became other canvases. So I'm I'm not building a brand. I'm just creating art. What are they talking about? I literally thought that they were trying to sell me a manifestation program that they had collaborated with Gabby Bernstein. I had that was where my mind immediately went oh, cool. They think that I would like this product. And I've followed Gabby for years, since 2020. I've read her books. I've bought her programs. I have studied under her. Yes, please send me all the information. I would love to purchase this manifestation collaboration between Goss and Gabby. And the response I got back was wait, no, we want to feature Soulshine alongside Gabby Bernstein in our special edition magazine by Goss called Manifest. I was what? No, I was completely stunned. I was stunned. I share that story because I had this belief that impact would only count when it looked a certain way. When I was officially launched for business, when I had made some kind of milestones and followers or podcast downloads or money, that I was invisible to them because I'm just one in a sea of 418,000, that I wasn't established, that I wasn't anything like these ladies I saw online who were incredible visionaries and healers and entrepreneurs. I wasn't that. I was just over here creating art, for me, for my own healing, for my own journey, for my own expression. I wasn't trying to build any kind of brand. I wasn't trying to do anything. I wasn't even open for business at this point in January. And I was just exploring. And I remember just being floored by the universe. And it's going to make me emotional because I think about those 5 women who changed my life. And they didn't even know they were doing it. They were just living from their truth, from their lived expression, from their living art, you know? And here I was in my own little bubble, thinking like my words didn't matter, my art didn't matter except to me, just creating for the sake of creating because it connected me back to my heart, to my spirit, to my life, created me back to the beauty of being alive, all the while judging that it wasn't impactful in the world, judging that it didn't matter to anyone else but me and my family and my friends, you know? How was I underestimating my own impact, my own contribution, just because I didn't have metrics? And it was such a humbling, simple moment. I felt so seen. Like everything I had done in 2025, creating from my own freedom, from my own liberation, from my own creation power, was actually like recognized by this incredible, empowering, elevating community for all that it was. And I wasn't trying to get them to do anything, see me any kind of way. I was just doing it for me. And I think that's the most humbling part of all of it. We don't know who's looking at us, even when we judge it, that we don't have the right answer, that we don't have the easiest way, that we don't have the dream board that we want to have, you know, and we're so critical of all that we are and all that we stand for and all that we could be more. And someone out there is looking at you, dreaming. They could be as brave as you, as smart as you, as kind as you, as loving as you, as service-oriented as you, as funny as you. You never know what kind of inspiration you are, what kind of impact you have on the people around you, because you can never see yourself fully the way that you are seen, as a living miracle, as a living example, as an inspiration. And we'll probably never fully know the impact of our expression, of our being. And this is where I want to take us in this 4th part, is this unseen legacy of our words, of our expression, of the way that we shape one another and the environment around us, visibly and invisibly, in ways we can know and in ways we can't. Don't discount the impact you're already having. That impact is so rare that we have the evidence and the metrics for it. It's so rare that it announces itself. Like, hey, excuse me, did you know that you changed my life 5 years ago? Like, probably someone is wishing they can tell you that as they're thinking back on their life. But how often do we lose connection? Or, oh, they don't remember, they're not going to remember me. Or that was just one class back in high school, elementary school, college, whatever it was. That influence happens invisibly. You never know who's watching you, who's listening to you, who's learning from you, who's finding courage from you, who's finding hope, who's deciding what's possible because of you, because you exist, because your hopes, because your vision, because the way that you are, the way that you see the world, the way that you love and lead and live. Research also supports this, no surprise, that witnessing courageous and constructive behavior often inspires similar behavior in others. And that is what creates the ripple effects throughout groups, throughout communities, throughout this planet in ways that we might never know. The ripple becomes another ripple, becomes another ripple, becomes another ripple, and eventually something much larger begins to move. Not because one person changed the world, but because one person might have changed a moment, and that moment changed another person, and that person changed another person, and that person changed another person. And again, we go back to the interconnectedness of us all and the beautiful mystery that is larger than all of us, and the ways that we will never know how we are healing each other and this planet by being in our truest frequency and by expressing our truest frequency, whatever that means, and the harmony that each person's frequency brings to another. I'm not talking about legacy as measured by like awards and titles and downloads and recognition and followers. I'm talking about something so much greater than we could ever comprehend. Legacy measured in possibilities expanded and conversations started and courage borrowed and hope restored and lives that are quietly redirected. Most of us will never know the full extent of the impact that our life has had because we judge it. We're not open to see it. The one moment on the floor making cookie dough with a loved child, whether that's your own child or a nephew, even the walk in the woods alone. How does that change the way you show up next? With more patience, with more wonder? What's the ripple effect of that? How does the silence enhance your voice? Our voice doesn't guarantee influence or success, but the one guarantee is that it is you participating in your life and in shaping the world around you, whether you realize it or not. I am so passionate about this, and this deepening is one of the reasons I created Wild Words, the art of spoken expression, because over the years, and especially recently with my deeper interest in communication through the lens of human behavior, energetics, spirituality, I've come to believe that something is missing from those traditional speaking programs or visibility programs. Like most focus just on the strategy, what to say, how exactly to say it, how to position yourself, how to perform it. And yes, that strategy matters. I do believe in strategy, but I don't believe that that's the only thing. I don't think that creates resonance, that feeling that you get, that vibration, that frequency that happens when communication first meets self-trust, when the energy of that lived experience is carried in your words because they feel so true in your body before it even ever reaches someone's ears. That's what Wild Words is about. It's not just saying more words, it is speaking. And speaking words that feel alive, words that connect to you first, to your heart, to your compassion, to your conviction, so that it transcends being just information, so that it becomes permission for others to speak. All of these pieces were built as an ecosystem. So in this podcast trio, we had an episode about discovering yourself through expression, which was the anniversary podcast episode called One Beautiful Year. What I was creating was actually creating me. And then we developed that further to understand the forces that keep us silent in the episode called The Surprising Reason Why Smart People Stay Silent. That led to this one. And all of those are beautiful foundational pieces that help us understand how do we find our voice? How do we have compassion for the reasons we stay silent? And this podcast, which is an invitation to believe that your participation matters in the world around you. But Wild Words is so much more deeper in learning how to communicate from that truest part of who you are once you decide to participate. How do you do it with truth? How do you do it with art and creativity? And how do you do it with conviction, knowing that you are changing your life and those in front of you? And if you're listening to this and thinking, okay, that sounds beautiful, but I still don't know how to speak up when it matters, then I want to invite you to a masterclass. It's called Fearless is Not the Answer. Speak before you're ready. And it goes beautifully with this ecosystem of voice and speaking, because one of the myths that we explored in this podcast trio is that confidence has to come first, like believing that you finally feel ready and you're certain and then you'll speak. And we dispelled that myth. And instead, we're asking you, instead of becoming fearless, simply to bring the fear with you and be willing to participate. And so while the podcasts kind of give you foundational understanding, the masterclass is like, okay, now what? Yes, I've accepted that speaking is a beautiful way to find my voice. I've accepted that I'm human and I'm going to be scared. And I've accepted that, okay, whatever I say is important enough to say it, but I'm still scared. So how do I do it anyways? This masterclass is for you because it creates humane entry points into conversations that matter? How do you enter visibility, expression, leadership, creativity, truth-telling, even when you're scared? Because at the heart of it, you are connected either to yourself, connected to the purpose, or connected to the person. And this masterclass leverages those connections as the bridge to bring fear with you. It's a beautiful masterclass, and it's a beautiful part of this ecosystem. You're going to find the information for both the masterclass and the Wild Words course in the show notes. And in our ending tradition, I don't want this space to just be something that inspires you. I want it to be something that you can walk away with an invitation to actually transform. So your invitation this week is to notice who gave you permission, whose words changed you, whose honesty changed you, whose courage changed you, whose art changed you. And then ask yourself, what if I became that person for someone else? Not someday, not when I feel ready, not when I have more titles or leadership positions or followers or credentials or proof. Today, one story, one question, one act of expression, one conversation, because your voice is not just about you, not just about your reach, your influence. Your voice matters because every time you speak honestly, you create courage, you share openly vulnerability, you express authenticity. Remember the research that supports it and the energetic experience that we've all had. You widen the doorway for someone else. It is far greater than us, than our ego, than our fear. The people who changed my life never knew they were doing it, which means someone else's life may already be changing because of you. How will you live today with more intention, with more courage, with more vision, with more compassion, with more self-leadership? I'm wishing you all play, possibility, and peace, wishing you to feel supported in this space, and I am so honored to be a part of your soul tribe. I'm sending you love, and I'll see you next week. Bye. Subscribe to the Soul Shine podcast to never miss an up level. I love hearing your feedback and your questions, so leave an honest review to help more people find the Shine Tribe. Screenshot and email if you have a 5-star review to hello@soulshine.global, and we'll give you a free downloadable meditation and enter you to win a free private coaching session. Giveaways will occur at every 50 review milestone, and your entry will always remain in the draw. Join our community to learn and practice cognitive emotional tools for personal growth and career success. Visit soulshine.global, follow us on Instagram at soulshine_global, or email hello@soulshine.global. Thanks.